Hello everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. Thank you for tuning in today. We will be going over Alex Collier's number 184 webinar from June 2nd, 2023. I know I'm a couple of months behind. I apologize about that. I've just been so busy lately with things in life and my new job that I just really haven't had time. I did have a comment from a subscriber, saying that the information was old. Some of it is on the current stats, and they kind of asked, well, why didn't I just start doing the updated ones, like the most recent ones? And I started to do August 25th from the other day because today is the 29th. I started doing it, and then I thought, you know, um, when they do these webinars, they basically talk about the copyrights and people copywriting their information, and that kind of cheats Alex out of money and JP and James. And so I started doing the most recent one, but then again, I might get behind working. So unfortunately, I think I'm just gonna stay with the past information. That's a couple months behind. I'm sorry. Like, if you want that most recent intel from Alex, you're probably just gonna have to go to his website and pay for it on the replays, so that he gets the money. Um, I've thought about not even doing this anymore lately. I've I was up at 4:45 this morning to be to work at 6. And I literally just got home at 2 o'clock and it's 2:37 right now. So I'm doing this for you guys because I just finished it the other day. So I've gotten a lot of really lovely comments, that people are appreciative that I'm doing this because they can't afford even the replays on Alex's website. So um, for now, we're just going to stay with, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to be a couple months behind. But there is legitimate information that he does share on these webinars. Not only the current stats, like I understand, I'm just going to have to say, there's, let it's not current. And we know a lot of things are going on right now with August, and we're moving into September. And boy, like I said, you can really tell from the sun. Like, I can really tell from the sun, and um, some of the trees around here are actually starting to lose leaves and change color. So I think we're going to have a little bit of an early fall. I know they had an early harvest season in our area, so we'll see. But anyway, I appreciate all of you for subscribing. Thank you for the donations. I really do appreciate it. It helps out a lot, especially right now with everything so high. I literally just got my water bill and it was, uh, gosh, they hadn't charged us for a few months. It's really weird. In the neighborhood we live, we're on a well. The whole neighborhood's on this special well, and he didn't charge anything for like 6 months. And then all of a sudden he started charging again. But now, like, my water bill is up to $600. So I appreciate any donations if y'all want to help. It's crazy. It's insane. So I know everyone's having a really tough time. I think we're all feeling it, and we're all very wary, and we're all anxious just to get this shit going. Um, I'm kind of tired of, we're in that routine of working, 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 and life, 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 and every day is just blending in uh, to each other. And we just really want, a lot of us want things to, like, not just trickling in the drip, drip, drip of things happening, but, we want major things to happen. And it's coming. Like, I think, like I said, September, October, we're going to have a red October. I'm pretty sure about that. I've been right so far that we didn't have uh, the trials in June and July. I don't see that probably till next year, unfortunately. Like I said, I think we have till this end of the year, we have 4 more months to go of a lot of crap, a lot of hard things, and it's really hard financially. I feel like every time I go to the grocery store, I keep getting less or I get different things. And I went the other night and I spent $260. And on what? Like, I didn't get very much. And you don't have to buy, and it's not really the meat. I got like one thing of meat, and the rest was like the vegetables are expensive, the dairy is expensive. Um, yeah, it's just insane. It's insane. So I'm spending, you know, 14 to $1,600 a month in groceries. And that's like with toiletries, and then I've got cats and dogs, and it's a lot. It's a lot. We don't even make enough to pay the bills we have right now. And I know a lot of you are in that position too. And I feel you. I feel I feel you. I do. Um anyway, enough of my rambling. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get into this. So Alex Collier's June 2nd of 2023. He says, "Hi, everyone. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for sharing your time with us." He says that, um, I know the summer's here and the weather's starting to turn nice, except in the Southern Hemisphere. And, I know you have a lot of other things you want to do. And honestly, genuinely appreciate the fact that you're here with us. So, yes, and with me. And we know the summer is coming to an end right now, but of course, this was in June. So he says, folks, it's a fascinating time to be alive. It's almost as if you know what's coming, and yet we all seem surprised when it happens. And I mean, he says, the stupidity is so rampant. You wonder why we haven't seen it before. And he kind of laughs and he says, but anyways, let's get into this. There's so much information, I'm not quite sure where to start. He says, we are heading into the end of the movie here. He says, now I know there's a lot of people who say 2025 and 2026, and this is going to go on for another couple of years. And it's not. He says, it's not. I do believe it's not going to go on that long. I think, like I said, we're going to have a lot of shit until the end of this year. And I think 2024 is going to be really good. Okay. He says, now, here in the United States, of course, we know that an unconstitutional bill was passed by both houses, the Congress and the Senate, where there is no debt limit until 2025, sometime in 2025, he says. And a lot of folks are like, oh God, here we go. Another year, another 2 years. He says, ladies and gentlemen, the money isn't worth anything. It doesn't matter how much they print, okay? No one wants it. No one's buying treasuries. One of our closest allies, Japan, is dumping $250 billion in treasury notes every 3 weeks. He says they're dumping it. He says real quietly behind the scenes. And they're converting the money. He says the yen that they get for it, I guess they're turning it into gold, and there are a lot of other countries doing the exact same thing. So things are moving along. He says they are moving at a rapid pace. He says, now this brings us to the financial system in the United States. According to Stanford University, at least half of the banks in the United States are already insolvent. That's over 2,300. And that includes their branches as well. Okay. So, things are not okay. He says they're not hunky dory. The system is in fact collapsing, which is what Nasara was all about. The whole purpose of Nasara was to destroy the central banking system, the Rothschild Rockefeller central banking system. That's what it is designed to do. So it's been known for quite some time how dark it is. So nobody should be surprised once you know that. He says, so in your local area, you might want to look into credit unions. Hello, my boy. I have a cat. I'm gonna have to put him out. Come here. No, you can't get into everything. This is Binksy. Say hi, Binksy. Hi, Binksy. He's been rolling in the catnip. Let's put you out, buddy. Let's put you out. See, your brother. Okay. Do you like my shirt? Look. It says, not all who wander are lost. That's me. Okay. Let's see. He says, it's just an idea. I don't know which ones are going to collapse or when they're going to collapse. I can tell you that Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase and Citibank, he says JP Morgan Chase has $30 trillion in derivatives. Derivative exposures, 30 trillion. He said Bank of America is somewhere around 27 trillion, and I think Citibank is just over 10 trillion in derivatives. He says now the largest corporation in the world today that we're aware of would be BlackRock. Their entire asset portfolio, he says 12 trillion, but these other ones were actually more. So I'm not sure he got that right as far as I just write what he says. So he says, so that tells you what kind of trouble these banks are in, just FYI. He says, now, and since we're talking about this, you know the entire reason for the implementation of the quantum financial system and the fact that it's being rolled out real slow is because they don't want to make any mistakes. They don't want real people to get hurt by this transition. It's not to say the people won't. It says, but they're absolutely doing their best. It's complicated. It's a very, very complicated issue. Some of the things that have caused the complications is the fact that trillions and trillions of dollars of printed money is nowhere to be found. It's somewhere, and they have done their best through audits, through network spiders, all kinds of things to figure out where this money is, and they haven't been successful, at least as far as I know, he says. So they're moving forward now to implementing the system. Now, the currency resets of many different nations around the world, you have to understand they are perfectly in tandem with the quantum financial system. This is all being managed for a very specific time. It says, now I don't know if they know exactly the date or if they're just looking for a series of emerging factors that points to this is the time to do it. And then it just happens. He says, then the button's pushed. He says, but we're close. We're close. No one knows the date though, but we are close because there's a lot of activity in Reno and other places around the world. There's a lot of activity. There are a lot of million-dollar homes being bought in Florida and Texas as we speak, that it may appear that some folks may have gotten paid already. We don't know that for a fact, but it's interesting the spike in million-dollar homes that are being sold. And of course, no one would be able to say anything because everyone's under a NDA, Non-Disclosure Act. Once you do your process, okay? So nobody would say anything because otherwise you would lose it. It says you know, with the knock on wood, any of us, we would all be in that situation soon. We'll have to see. It feels good though. It really seems like we're moving towards this crescendo. The blockchain system, I would suggest if you have the time to do some research yourself on what that is. Because I know that there's a lot of pundits out there. volume. So-called experts out there on the quantum financial system. I don't know that anybody talking is actually an expert, because anyone who has done the word, done the code, even bank managers that have been trained on it, they're not talking. They have NDAs. They're not saying anything. He says, but do the best that you can to research what it's all about. And here's the takeaway between the blockchain system, the quantum financial system, and what we have today. The banking system we have today is completely open. Anybody who knows anything can find you, find your account, find your money, and find your wealth. Can get all of your credit card numbers. He says, I mean, I'm a nobody, and I've already had to change my PayPal card 3 times this year, and my Wells Fargo twice. Yeah, it's incredible, right? And he says, you're on the phone with Wells Fargo security, bank security. How does this happen? And they're like, we don't know. And I'm like, they have a physical card of mine, and they're in another state trying to buy a U-Haul trailer. And he says, I'm on the phone with you as they're doing this. What do you mean you don't know? So, he says it's just shit. There's no privacy, and apparently there really is no security. The quantum system, though, the blockchain system, is based on a ledger system. It's transparent. However, on the blockchain, it's transparent. However, once your monies and funds are moved to your quantum account, your money disappears from the rest of the world. Not from you, but from the rest of the world. In other words, your money is as sovereign as you're going to be when this transition is completely run its course. And the operative word here is sovereign. Your money will be sovereign as long as you don't forget your passcodes and your cards and your account numbers and everything else that's associated with it. Where you go, your wealth goes. No one else can touch it. That's one of the big things here, okay? So these damn banks can't charge you fees anymore. Okay, they can't touch your money. So all these people, and in my past, like getting those bounce check fees because the banks found a way to, let's say you had several charges, and like you had a big charge and you had several little charges, and instead of putting the little charges through so shit doesn't bounce, they put the big charge through first. And so all the little ones bounce, and they get $25 to $35 fee on each one of those. Bullshit. They won't be able to do that anymore. Thank God. Oh my gosh. Okay. And he says, because the system does not store the numbers. Okay. So you have a block of data where all of your information is stored, your wealth and everything else, but nobody else has access to it. That's the point here. So nobody's going to be able, you're not going to be able to do these like, what is it, that automatic payments for things, for your credit cards, for mortgages. Of course, we won't have a mortgage and we won't have credit cards anymore, right? So no more, no more direct automatic withdrawals for things. They won't have access to it. Okay. I encourage you guys to do some research on that yourself. From everything that I've read and from people that I talk to that I think have a clue, it really sounds remarkable. I don't know about the phones. I don't know about the computers. I don't know about that yet, he says, but I like the idea of being able to go to any ATM around the world and being able to pull out money and no one knows what I'm doing except for me, the ATM machine, and my quantum account. It's not that I'm doing anything nefarious or dark. That's not it at all. It's just we like to be independent. We want to be independent. That's who we are as souls, as beings who like being independent. This gives you that responsibility. Once again, this particular system now, how you act with it is a whole other issue. But nonetheless, this is all part of the process. And like I said last week or 2 weeks ago, when we get to the end of the drama that we're going through, things are going to be different. The world is going to be different. Protocols will be different. The way we interact with institutions and authority will be very different than it is today. Though we will have a lot more responsibility to manage our own lives. And for some people, that means you're going to have to step up and take responsibility. And you won't be able to blame anybody else because those institutions will no longer exist. So, anyways, it is what it's going to be. There's a lot of conversation about he said the other word, but I'm going to say healing beds, because YouTube's algorithm is gonna, like bump me for that, because they took off my whole video about those healing beds. He says, I cannot speak for what the military's doing. I cannot speak for what other companies are doing. I only have information that I will share based on my own firsthand or associated relationships. There are companies that have funding to make this work. However, the banking system refuses to transfer those funds so that this can happen, which should tell you everything, okay? Bastards. Yes. He says, number one, they don't have the money themselves. Number two, they probably can't be trusted to send the money. And number three, there is the lower level management of the deep state at this point fully realizes that they're totally screwed because their masters are gone. They've either been taken out or they've just vanished, leaving everybody on their own, which would always be about right, he says. And they simply don't know what to do because they haven't had to make any decisions themselves. He says, for 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, 100 years, they have been told what to do. They've been minions. Now they're having to figure out what to do themselves. And a lot of the inaction doesn't stem from a lack of knowledge. It comes from fear, number one. Number two, they really don't know what to do because they haven't had to make those decisions themselves. And three, they realize when this whole thing comes down, it's going to come down on them. So they simply just don't have a clue on what to do. And in most cases, they're not doing anything, thinking that that's the appropriate thing for them to do, is for them to do nothing. And this is all over the West, not just the United States, but Western Europe, parts of South America. He says it's everywhere. It's wherever the central banking system has operated or the BIS has operated. So BIS is Bank of International Settlements. The World Bank, he says, basically no one is running these things because the people that made all these decisions are gone. So he says that makes things even more interesting. The thing to know is that at some point in the very relative near future, this whole thing is going to come down, and just before it does, we will see the implementation of the benevolent reset of the world's currencies, creating a level playing field, with a basket of currencies being held as reserve currencies, a basket of currencies that will be generally based on the larger economies and those that have the most natural resources. So that basket could be 7, 8, 9, 10 countries or more. But again, it's going to be a level playing field. It's important to note that the Federal Reserve note, what we in the States call the United States dollar, is no longer the world's reserve currency. You have to understand that. And because that's a very, very big deal. Because in the history of the world, the known world, that hasn't been erased. There has never been a world reserve currency that has collapsed. This is a first. So there's a lot of people scratching their head. There's a lot of people See, I can't read my writing. I guess I said, what do we do? There's others with their hair on fire. He says, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to lose everything. Yada, yada, yada. Everybody needs to calm down, he says. There are so many things that you can do to prepare for this. We've talked about this for years, whether it's food, storage, silver, gold, land. There's so many things you can do, okay? When you're in fear, when you're in panic, you don't make the best decisions because you go into fight or flight mode and your brain goes into a panic. So it's going to direct you in a way where it's pure survival. Your brain doesn't know exactly what to do in this scenario because we've never been in this scenario. So what one has to do is get real calm, real quiet, do some research, look at the entire landscape, and you decide what it is that you want to do with what you have. There are a lot of people pulling their cash out of the banks. Okay, that's something. And when the dollar does collapse and we switch over to a gold-backed currency, whether it's hard currency or digital, and I'm not talking CBDC, I'm talking about a central bank digital currency. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? But digital currencies are in our future. But they're asset backed, they're real. That's the difference, not paper and ink. As that transition happens, those of you with cash that aren't on any list of drug cartels or anything like that, you will be able to go in and exchange it from what I understand. And it's supposed to be 1-to-1 because they're not going to punish the people. They're going to punish those who created the system and have taken advantage of the people for doing this. So this is coming. This is coming. Again, nobody knows the dates. And it's getting to wear out people. We're worn out. We all need a vacation, right? I'm going to need a massive vacation for a long time after this shit. He says, but it'll happen before the total collapse. Now, I've been listening to and bits and pieces of many people talking about the near-death experience, that we are so close to a nuclear war with Russia, that we are so close to a Chinese hack of our entire infrastructure. So let's back up here and let's clarify what they're saying, or let me just share with you what they should be saying. In China is the CCP. It is not the Chinese people, and it's not the civilization or civilian Chinese government. It is the CCP. That's China's deep state. And they're mofos, he says. And they're extremely wealthy because they've modeled themselves after an organization here in the West, the C_A. And they've acquired a lot of bad habits, just like C_A. A lot of bad habits. That's the issue with China. Russia, he says, they have no real desire to nuke anybody because you can't win these things. Number one, even if they were allowed to go off, there is no winner in this, okay? It's mutually insured destruction. That's what it is. Number two, I don't believe they would ever be allowed to go off. Now, somebody might try to do something with a dirty bomb, but everybody's looking for those. You have drones, you have satellites, you have aircraft everywhere looking for those type of radiological signatures, because we know that there are groups that would do something like this, whether they be in Ukraine or C_A. Now, not everyone in these agencies is evil. They're not. It typically is a very, very small group that is relatively unknown, that has been rogue for a long, long time. They do the dirty work. They do the wet work, okay, for these agencies. They operate outside of the regular command and generally report to very, very few people, which is why they're not well known. There's a few of them out there. There is. So now, if you're familiar with Israel, you know that Israel has their Iron Dome, which is the defense system. Well, you might be surprised to know that the United States also has one. I didn't know that. Did you know that? I didn't know that. It's different than what Israel has, but we do in fact have one. And part of that system is HARP. That's a surprise. Um, Now there is acknowledgement that HARP has caused damage to not only the atmosphere, but to the weather patterns in the entire western areas of North America. This is acknowledged, but they can't turn it off yet, not just yet, because of these other issues, okay? Because of these other issues. It says there are also one or two submarines that are also unaccounted for. It says they're not necessarily associated with a country's military, but offshoots in other agencies or private freelance. He says, I don't know the exact word to use here, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, okay? There's still some freelancers out there who would do something like this because of how terrified they are about getting caught, because of the things they have done in the past. Though that's important to know. So also it's interesting that 4 separate agencies of Space Command have been moved to Colorado. We also have a unit up in Alaska, which we'll talk about shortly. I don't think he ever did get back on that, but what is important to note is that the locals in Colorado Springs, they already call it Star Wars City. That's because there's always stuff in the sky over there and they just don't report it. And it's a very, very interesting place. That's where I wanted to move. I just do. I have some family in Colorado, but yeah, there's a reason. There's something pulling me there. Spaceport. Also, of course, we also have Cheyenne Mountain there, and that goes all the way under Pikes Peak and stretched all the way to the Salinas Valley. Now, if you pull out a map of Colorado, you can see that's a very large area, and we have a spaceport there. There is a spaceport there. He says, deep in the mountains, all right? The locals in the Salinas Valley see things all the time coming in and out of the mountains. Nobody talks about it though, okay? I need you to understand that they got this. They really do. They got this. We have the technology, we have the right people, we have a mentorship relationship with a group which is referred to as the Alliance. And many of these beings that are assisting and mentoring are thousands of years old. They don't look it, but they're thousands of years old. And this is not their first rodeo, not at all. So it's important for you to know this as well. So everything is being done strategically to make this happen. All roads are coming to a conversion point, and this is, of course, all being managed by the White Hats and the Alliance. The purpose of sharing this with you again is so you don't get freaked out and you don't need to panic. Now, this is a scary time because none of us have ever been here before. The world is going to go through a series of changes. The loss of a global currency system, the collapse of a central bank system. A lot of countries whose wealth have been stolen have to figure out how they can create an asset-backed currency in those negotiations. And things are not only coming back to place, but in some cases, that which was stolen from them has been returned or is in the process of being returned to them so that they can participate in this reset as an equal. All of this is going on in the background while the mainstream media consistently lies about everything except maybe the weather. He says everything else is rubbish. So for those of you who've lived here in the Western United States or the Western part of the Northern America, um, you will have realized by now, well, maybe not up in British Columbia, he says, but here in the United States, we've had the wettest May in years that anybody can remember, and this is a really, really good thing. He says, and I know that we have Space Force to thank for this. We do. We do. Okay. It says now, assisting in the field over North America is Solar Warden. They are also very active, not only in our area between Venus and Mars, but they are also very active and learning a lot of things out there near Jupiter, Ganymede specifically. You know, the issue for me is that I always try to take into account people who are listening for the first time and going, what did he say? Huh? He says, I'm trying to break it down so that everybody can understand it. And I get that if you're here for the first time and you're like, wow, what? How can this be? This doesn't make any sense. Why haven't we heard about this on the news? He says, you know, you want to learn about Pride Month? Watch the news, okay? Our soldiers who have fallen, defending humanity and their countries, get 1 day. 1 day. And he kind of chuckles and he says, if you are 0.005% of the world's population, you get a whole month. He says, I don't even want to get started on that, okay? I don't even want to get started on that. So that's all you're going to hear about. It says, anyway, we have a lot more resources. We have a lot more things in place than most people even realize. And I understand that because of the training, because of the mind control, what they love to do and what they've been very successful in doing is taking those with a very open perspective and forcing you to come down this very narrow lane of perspective and reality. You have to withstand being forced into that alley. You must keep your perspectives and your perceptions totally open because this is where it's all happening, is here. That's why they're trying to focus your energy here. From here, they're trying to focus it to here. And your consciousness in this little space, so you can't see any of this stuff. Says that's why they've been able to get away with all the shit that they've been doing for years and years and decades. Okay? Don't fall for this trap. He says, don't let them pigeonhole you in any way, shape, or form. There is a profound amount of things going on this planet that are outstanding. But what it is it represents change. And a lot of people get scared. They get nervous when they realize there's big change coming. So, he says, and it is, but there's a plan, ladies and gentlemen. There's a plan. And I told you, and I have since last year, there's no failure points here. He says, hey, James, can you put that picture up for me? I want to go somewhere with this. I'm assuming he's with us. There it is. So let me share my screen. I took a screenshot. Okay, so this is the picture that he shared right here. He says, ladies and gentlemen, this is the known universe that we can see. Every single one of those lights represents a star, and around those stars are planets, as you can see. Some of these are galaxies that you can very easily make out. Galaxies very similar to ours, a swirl and a spiral of planets. Other stars, planetary bodies, all of them loaded with life. Different life than we are, but nonetheless life. Consciousness, active, integrative consciousness. He says, now, if you look at our galaxy and you realize how complicated it is and how much life there is, and you take that and you multiply it by 2 trillion, that's what you're looking at. It says that's what you're looking at. Now, this is just third density. This is not fourth. This is not fifth. They look different. The view of the universe in fifth density, he says, I can't even explain it to you. It doesn't look like this. It's bigger, it's greater, it's more robust. And you have systems and colors and absolutely defined description that all have conscious life in it. And then you go to the next level, 6th, 7th, 8th, and we can assume that they look very similar or are greater in fashion. When we came into this space as souls from someplace else, this was not plug and play. He says it didn't come furnished. You understand? Okay? This universe didn't come furnished. We helped create the life, the physicality of this universe. All of us that are here in third density or have had third density lives, we have assisted in manifesting physicality. If you were in the fourth, you've done the same thing there. Fifth, you've done the same thing there. Sixth, seventh, etc., etc., etc. You've done the same thing there. No one is powerless. No one can't do it. It's a lie. You have helped to create this. I have helped to create this. The places where it's black, where there's nothing, which they call dark energy according to the A's, those are areas that have not been magnetized by thought. In other words, no one has thought to create something there. Here in the Rockies, one of the things I love about Colorado is that the mountains are so vast that there are places here that have never seen a footprint. Not a footprint. Says that intrigues me because that means that's the way they originally created it, and it's the way God intended it. This is the same thing. There are parts of our universe that are exactly the same way, that have not seen a star nation, that do not have any civilization there whatsoever, but everything else we helped to create with our own consciousness. So why am I talking about this? Because the changes that are coming to this planet, we can do. We can take the steering wheel and we can take this planet exactly where we want it to go. We can begin the process of educating our civilization the way we know it ought to be. All we have to do is take responsibility for not only ourselves, but for our civilizations. We need to back each other up. We need to have each other's back. It needs to be instinct. And yeah, there's gonna be some weeding out of assholes. He says, it's gonna happen. But that doesn't mean you give up with the rest of humanity. You know, he says, the assholes will take themselves down. They always do. But we have to watch each other's back. If we can do this, then we can sure take care of our own damn little planet. So I'm gonna stop sharing that. Okay. It says, that's my point here. There are no excuses. It says, every single one of you has the ability to be a leader. You're all leaders, okay? Every single one of you has the ability to be an authority of your own life, to take authority over your own life, to lead, to teach, to be at one with all things. You were gifted at the moment of your creation. All of us were. I'm trying to stay ahead of the changes so that when this comes down, you guys just step right into your roles and say, you know what? Well, everybody's like, oh my God, what do we do? You're like, let's do this. Here's what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. And you're off to the races. There's no lag time. There's no collapse. Everybody's given an assignment. They know what to do, whether they're family members or your neighbors, or you begin the process taking your community forward, moving beyond all the fear and all the, oh my God, they lied to us all these years. Well, duh. Just duh, you know. But we got to move past all that. It doesn't mean we forget it. It means we have to move past it to get to the other side of this. Because the militaries around the world, the white hats, they're not equipped to babysit the entire planet. They're not. It's not their job. They have other things they have to do. This has to fall back on us. That's what this is about. That's what I've been trying to stress for 30 something years. And our moment's coming. It's absolutely coming. And for those of you who are new, who want to start talking about your own experiences, start small, but do it. But just do it. Being courageous is not having no fear. It's about being scared to death, but saddling up anyways and getting on the horse and moving forward. That's what courage is. That's being what brave is. It's like what cops do every day. It's what the military does every day. If there's shooting and there's gunfire, they go towards it. They're not the ones running away. That's bravery. Now, that's not for everybody, obviously, but where there's conflict, where there's confrontation, we shouldn't be so quick to run away from it. These things need to be addressed, and the sooner the division between humanity that was created by the dark side is dealt with, the sooner, the faster the momentum gets behind it, and we push through all this darkness, all this trauma that's going to be created by disclosure, and we move through it and we begin creating the future of humanity. The money isn't going to solve anything. It's a tool, and that's all it's ever been. It doesn't buy happiness, it buys toys. But if you're not happy with that, what's the point, right? You got to have it here, he says. You have to have it here in your heart. You have to be comfortable with who you are, and only you can find out about who you are on your own personal term. You know who you are. If you know who you are, you can walk over hot coals, walk through thorns, walk anywhere and get to where you need to be and do what you need to do. We need leaders now. It's time for all of us to step up. It says, look, folks, those of us who have come from the future, I know that there's a part of you that's very, very calm inside because you already know. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Stay in that calm space. Let the insanity circle you and move around you. Just stay in that calm place, because when the storm passes you, you're going to have to turn around and you're going to have to mentor those around you who are just waking up and saying, what the fuck just happened? That's when you step up. That's when you take your steps and you say, look, here's what we've just been through. And at some point in describing what we've been through, you will tell whoever, this is where we are going. This is what's waiting for us. All we have to do now is come together and move in that direction and pull all this together. The resources are there. The help is going to be there. The mentoring is going to be there. All the tools we need to get there are going to be available. It is just the desire, the human desire to do it. That's what we are looking for after the storm has passed. I hope I've explained this well. I couldn't find my box of crayons, he says this morning. All right, are we going to do some questions? Okay, so as you know, I don't do all the questions because a lot of it he's already discussed and people ask kind of the same questions and same information, yada, yada, yada. So I just write the main ones with new information. First question. Hi, Alex. Did the A's ever give you insights on the information contained in crystal skulls and their role in disclosure and ascension? Thank you. And Alex says, no, they never did. I never bothered to ask. He says, I spent some time with the Mitchell Hedges once. He says, but for me, and this is just me, he says, I was not in awe. Obviously, they were made, but I was not in awe of the skull itself. I would not be one to stare at it for hours and hours and hours, not when I had access to Mornay and Visayas. I'd rather stare at them than an inanimate object. He says, well, not that crystal's inanimate. So no, I've not spent much time on it because I was not enthralled. He said, like so many other people are with the crystal skulls. So no, he says it's never come up in a conversation. I don't ever recall ever asking a question about it because it wasn't important to me. Next question is a very, very long question. In Defending Sacred Ground, you tell us that the Andromedan perspective is that Archangel Michael was literally a fleet of craft that were called Michael. If that's the case, then what is happening when many healers are praying to or ask help from Archangel Michael, and he appears to respond in the desired way, i.e., removing dark entities, trying to reconcile these two apparently disuse of Archangel Michael. I wonder if the prayers of many healers and others have created an archetype of some sort which behaves in the expected way. Would this be an example of the empowered human beings of Terra parting their putting their strong emotional charge into a common direction? And the same could be asked about Jesus and or other spiritual beings. And Alex was like, oh boy. He says, I wish you had asked me that question offline. He says, oh my God. And it was Michael, is how it was originally produced. Yes, they were fleets, and each one of them had a name. He says, oh man, that is a rabbit hole. And he just laughs. He says, that's a rabbit hole. So let me answer this question this way. We do know that angels exist. However, we do not have or did not have control over how the Caesars and their scribes and the Hebrew authors and writers recorded events in the past. We do know that they took liberties to change things, which is why we don't have any of the original Gospels from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century. They just don't exist. And the reason they don't exist is because they were destroyed. The oldest of the fourth, well, what's interesting is the Sinai Bible, which was compiled in the 5th century. If you compare that to today, there are thousands and thousands of discrepancies already. So we know that they took liberties and they changed sentences, words, entire paragraphs. They added stuff. They subtracted stuff in order to complete a very specific agenda. This is the church, fathers. This is self-evident. All you have to do is open up or actually research this and do the comparison. And for those of you who don't know anything about the Sinai Bible, to this day, it's the oldest one that we're aware of. There may be ones older or around the same time in private collections, but we don't know anything about them. The British Museum has been transcribing the Sinai Bible and putting it up, the transcriptions on their website. He says, so it's fascinating. There were also people at that time, as living Jesus, that have been completely written out of history, have been completely written out of history, and you have to ask yourself why. Why would they be written out of the history? If you look at the paintings of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, they always depict John the Baptist as an authority over Jesus, not Jesus over John the Baptist. Again, what did they know? Because they were closer than the truth than we are today. What did they know? Why did they paint it this way? There's a lot of things that hopefully will come out about all that. Getting back to the other issue, all of us have guides, spirit guides. We know angels do exist. We know that there are angelic-like beings in all of the dimensions, especially on the borders of the dimensions, okay? Let's say between third or fourth, you have a negative field and you have to have a positive field to balance it out. Well, that positive field would be there to assist. Most folks wouldn't have any idea. They could attribute it to an archangel, to a personage, when in fact it wasn't. But nonetheless, the desired outcome was achieved. What's important to note is that regardless of the name, all of it is source. All of it is source. All of it is great spirit. So instead of getting hung up on a personage, I can't say that word. Personages. Thank you, great spirit. Thank you, creator. Thank you, source. Because when you put out that intent and you use your voice to create frequency, and every one of the light and every end of the source benefits from that blessing. Okay, every one of source benefits from that blessing. On the other side, the negative field, it's put into like a savings account, and when they get over themselves, he says they'll get the blessing, I'm guessing. But that's probably what I would do if I were source. I would hold a trust account for them and say, when you stop being a shithead, you'll get your trust account. It will be all this love and all these blessings. Says that's just me. Next question. Will all of the debt that the fiat banking system has incurred be forgiven, or will it have to be paid off with the surplus of precious metals that the white hats have accrued, or money that has been confiscated by those committing crimes against humanity? And his answer is everything that I have heard and everything that I've looked into. The one of the things I like to look at is structure. How are things structured? A lot of now, even even though there's elements of the financial system that haven't been made public yet, these things that you can get from people who are in banking, who are bond dealers, currency traders, things of that nature. It says metal dealers, watching how governments are structuring their new financial systems, how BRICS is structuring itself with asset-backed currencies. If you look at the structure, everything appears to show you that there is going to be a general forgiveness of all debts, that everyone is going to start at square one, because everything that this system did was crooked. Everything was crooked. They broke the law everywhere, because especially here in the United States, virtually everything they did involved usury, and usury is against the law based on the Constitution. Slavery was abolished in 1863 or 1865. I think it was 1865, and yet we've all been debt slaves. That's against the Constitution, and it doesn't matter your color. These guys did not care. They just wanted to enslave humanity, and they did. That's exactly what they did. Everything says that these debts will be forgiven, and we all start over. He says, we don't give everything back. That's not what I mean. But if you have contracts and you have debts that are based on this old system, those debts will be forgiven. I'm sure there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. For example, let's say your mortgage is forgiven, but your bank is closed because it was insolvent. How do you get the title to your house? Those are things that probably need to be worked out and maybe already have been. That has not reached the rest of us yet. The same could be said for a car. If you know you're making payments on your car and the debt is forgiven and wiped clean, how do you get the title to your car if the original title holder is gone? So there's all these things we just don't know yet. Okay, so again, it's a process. There's a lot of things that are going into this process, but there's some really smart people who's been working on this for quite some time, since the 90s, actually. They've been working on this. Of course they have. There again, if you understand our financial system, when you're born, you're traded by your birth certificate on the stock market. We are all worth millions. And anytime you go for a loan, a mortgage, a credit card, anything like that, the bank is third party. You're basically, when you sign those papers, you're telling them it's okay for them to take that money out of your trust and give it to you. This is why they're so rich, because they're already giving you your own money. Okay, everything is paid for. It's already been paid for, and yet we're making a payment to them when we shouldn't be paying it back, plus interest. So when people realize this and they wake up to it, all hell's gonna break loose. Because yeah, they've been fucking us forever with that. It just, don't even get me started. That makes me so mad. Next question. With the collapse of the Federal Reserve and all that goes with it, you mentioned that the cabal will lose all their money. Can you expand on how their precious metals will be confiscated? And Alex answers, assuming that they haven't been confiscated already, assuming that they haven't been hidden somewhere. He says all things have a frequency. Gold has a frequency, silver has a frequency, platinum has a frequency, etc. He says, now we have satellite systems in space that know down to 50 miles underground where all the minerals are, what they are, and how much of it there is. They already know. They've known this for quite some time, actually, because they have ground penetrating radar on satellites in space. So they know where everything is, and they will not only be able to find it, but let's say you bring somebody in for an interrogation or an interview. Let's just call it an interview, he says. And they come into a room and there's several people there. You know, there's two people in front of a desk, maybe somebody sitting next to them, but there's a fourth in the back of the room. He or she isn't us. They're alliance and they're telepathic. And as the questions are being asked, they're recording the answers of what the interviewee is thinking. So when the interview is over, the person at the back of the room could come forward and say, here's what he didn't tell you, and they will know. Remember, they monitor change of thoughts. Big smile, he said that. They monitor change of thoughts. That's how they'll know. There's many different scenarios, but that's how they'll know. Not only that, but this has been a sting operation for quite some time, and you have to realize that. Though these people may not have been arrested, that does not mean that they haven't been under surveillance for years and years and years. Doesn't mean that they already know or suspect where things are, and just based on what they already have, their information could be uploaded into the quantum financial system already, which means that when they approach a bank or a revaluation center, reclamation center to exchange or to deposit their wealth, the system kicks it back and says, no way, no way. And they're shut out of the system completely. All kinds of ways to do this. Moving forward, it's all about authenticity for every one of us. It's all about authenticity. that's the only way forward. So that is the only way forward. Doesn't mean everyone who isn't authentic or hasn't been at some time in their life will be cast aside. That's not what that means. But there are some sins, for lack of a better word, that simply they have to be held accountable for it, such as murder, rape, molestation, pedophilia, and the worst of it that we've already talked about earlier today, those things. Says, but again, that is just based on what I am able to pull together from people who have moved in and out of those circles. I have a bank manager, he says, that I have brought up the QFS, and you would have thought his eyes would have popped right out of his head. How do you know that? And he says, dude, I probably know more than you do, you know, but he can't say anything. He had been gone 6 months. He had gone into training, but he's not going to say anything because he loves his job and he's honorable. The bank said, shut up, and he's shutting up. So there's others too that are like this. And those are people that you may want to do business with in the future, whether you're part of an RV process or not. Going back to some of these people and saying, look, you know, what do you have? What kind of programs do you have to assist people to help humanitarian projects? What do you have? How can I contribute and work with you on some humanitarian projects? Things like that. Pay it forward. Pay it forward. Once you have your family squared away, he says those kinds of things. He says it's really, really important. In defending each other, we will remain free. Next question. Hi, Big A. Your white cap bears a fleur-de-lis. Is there a significant reason why the emblem is on your white hat? If so, could you elaborate, but only as far as you are comfortable with, and I don't want to rush this baby. And Alex says, okay. Well, I'm a football fan. I do enjoy the game, and I do follow several teams. One of them is the Saints, New Orleans Saints. And two, the fleur-de-lis has a very, very interesting history. It wasn't until the 1100s that it was absconded with by the royals of Europe. But prior to that, it represented the bloodline of Mary Magdalene. It says, and I'll let you figure out the rest. Okay. One more question. Alex, have you been told what is to become of us star seeds once our mission is concluded? Will our star brothers and sisters join us on Earth, or will we return to our ships? And do these bodies need to die for the consciousness to rejoin our bodies if we have one in stasis? That's me. I'm ready to wake up and go home. And Alex says, that's going to be a different answer for everybody. Would you want to live in your body now for the rest of your existence? No. No. I want a better one. Don't you even want to explore what parts of you are in higher realms? Aren't you even wanting to explore how you got here in the first place? Are you even interested in your contract for this mission that you're on currently? Do you even want to know about your family that's waiting for you on the other side of this mission? You weren't born and hatched here. You were not. None of us were. No one here's soul was born and hatched here. I think if you spend some time thinking about that process and asking, I feel pretty confident you'll come up with very different questions than those you presented here today. So he says, thank you so much for being here and just being the incredible beings that you are. It's an honor and a privilege to serve with you and to be one of the knights with you guys of Terra. It's a really, truly a privilege for me, and I will be in touch. Take care and God bless. Okay, so that's the end of that one. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up, share with people. Please support Alex, JP, and James. Go to alexcollier.org for all of his information, free information. Brighteon.com at alexofficial2, Alex Collier Official 2, for his webinars and replays. Yeah, just go and support him. I appreciate you so much for following me. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I appreciate it. Y'all are my family. You're my soul tribe. And I'm trying my best to get these out to you as fast as I can when I have time. So I'll do the next one for June, even though I started August 25th. I'll put that aside for now. But anyway, I love all of you. I hope you have a wonderful week. We're headed into September here the next few days, so I'm ready to put out my fall decorations. So I'm gonna go rest and have a little snack. And I love all of you. I wish I could give all of you a great big hug. And thank you so much. Continue to be that lighthouse in the darkness so that rest of the lost ships at sea can find their way home. Eventually they will, okay? Eventually they will. And so say we all. And I will see y'all next time. Love you. Bye.